Well, for us at TCU, it's been a long. I kind of put it into now going into our fourth season in the Big 12. And just the difference in the 2-year turnaround. Walking up here last year, 4-8, changed offenses, 12-1. So for me, many of you that know me, it's about staying in between the lines, not getting too high, too low, either way. So a year ago you had to prove people wrong. This year you have to prove people right. And so as a football team, that's really, from my approach on down, it's how we've tried to handle it. It's been a great summer. Going into our fourth season, being last year, having an opportunity to be a situation where you won more than you lost, and getting a chance to play in a great bowl game. So for us, we're just moving forward, recruiting-wise, football-wise, all the above, facility-wise. Things have not stopped at TCU.
Hey, Gary, Jenny Carlson with the Oklahoman. A year ago at this time, I'm not sure everybody thought Trevone was your starting quarterback. Now, a year later, he's obviously the guy, had a great year. Can you just talk about his evolution and how he got to such a fantastic point with your offense last year?
Well, I told, if you were listening, somewhere listening, that really he was the toughest quarterback that I played against. Going through his eras, it had not come to fruition on the field, and so really, I wasn't surprised by his success. I think we were all surprised that offensively, because last spring, the spring before going into last season, it wasn't one of those situations. We just weren't very good when we ended spring. We were learning. Some guys were hurt, so you really couldn't tell, and then our kids really came along in the summertime. On their own, you really bonded and started doing it, and then things happened. So Trevone's case, I think one of the things is, and I've tried to do, and I talked to the whole offense about it, I think going into year 2, having not been known for offense is just handling success. I think the word frustration of understanding winning is the most important thing, and then all the rest will come, that they don't have to score more points, have more yards. It's going to be, but we play on the road 6 tough road games. It's hard to, if you're going to win those ball games, it's going to be hard to win by a couple of the margins that we did last year. So, that's the thing that I've tried to instill in Trevone, is to make sure. And I've been very proud of him in the fact of everything that the circuit he's been on, some of the awards, everything he's been a part of, that he's handled it in the right way, at least of my knowledge. Head coach sometimes the last guy to know everything. So.
Coach Ben Kirchvogel from Bleacher Report, staying on Trevone and how he's handled himself sort of during this circuit. How about his growth as a leader? We know he's grown on the field as a quarterback, but how about him sort of taking over not just this offense but this team?
Probably the best example of that, he's had a couple of the NFL guys, quarterbacks, the gurus that wanted him to come work out with him this summer doing it. He told them all no. I think, his biggest thing was, staying with the offensive group this summer, making sure they were doing 7-on-7, winning ball games. He knows all that. Whether he believes or he doesn't believe it, at least he's doing the right things, and I think that's half the battle. So, sometimes you can get lulled into everything, especially if you went from where we were to where he is now. And so for us, it's, from everything I've seen up to this point, he's handled it very well. And for us, we have a lot of older guys on offense, so the leadership aspect is not just him. It's been Joey Hunt that's here today. Josh Dotson. You have many that have played in a lot of football games.
You walked in here. The first thing you said was, you're walking in here this year, not 4-8. You're 12-1. What do you think of the distance you've come in just 1 year in this league to walk into this room today as really the lead favorite in this league?
I don't. It's a nice feeling, but the bottom line is I've been in this business too long to get caught up in it. I know that last year we didn't have any linebackers, we didn't have a quarterback, this year I've got to replace 6 starters on defense, and we came a long way in the spring. But the thing I've found is just for me, if I stay even keel with how we need to do things, then my team will, because it just kind of all reverberates down. And so for me, I'm just going to it doesn't, what I think when I go to bed at night, and not just in the Big 12, but everything that we've been able to accomplish at TCU in the last 18 years. It's all great and fine, but it's kind of like winning any awards. You can put them all in the closet because it doesn't mean anything to anybody anymore when we play Minnesota. So right now we've been moving forward, and I've really liked the attitude of our football team. This summer's been a very business-like manner of how they've gone about it. To be honest with you, it hasn't been as hot in Texas, so we've had to turn off the air conditioner in the indoor to create the humidity to make sure that we play like TCU teams are supposed to play. And so if there's any actions from me that would indicate that I didn't go back to the beginning, I've tried not to make sure I gave any of those away. So.
Hey, Gary, Suzanne Halliburton with the Austin American-Statesman.
Sure.
Questions about two of your positions. It looked like in the spring you had an abundance of wide receivers, enough to move some of them around. And the second question is about your linebackers, because it looked like you didn't have a lot of depth there.
Well, I don't know if you ever have enough of anything. You try not to have, but we have the same guys coming back, and we have some freshmen coming in. We lost Josh Porter, but everybody else is back. I think, like any football team, the key was in the last half of the season, until we got to the bowl game, we were beat up at that position, and it showed in our numbers. And so I think, like anybody else, you've got to stay healthy. Linebacker-wise, we had two young guys, both Mike Freeze and Alex Dunham, that came in the spring. Ty Summers redshirted. And to be honest with you, it's back to the numbers we had. You know, our starting linebackers last year ran 5 flat and 4.8. It was the slowest group we've ever had at TCU. The 5 top linebackers this year average a 4.5 something when we ran at the end of spring. So we feel like defensively, not just linebacker-wise, we have a chance to be more athletic than we were a year ago. You've got to replace a Kevin White and then a Sam Carter and a Chris Hackett. So you have a group of guys that in the last 3 years in the Big 12 that picked 65 footballs. And so there's a lot of production that we have to be able to replace. How do you do that? And so we started in the spring, because I treat spring like two-a-days, where it's really about being physical and learning. And then when we get into two-a-days, it's just an addition. And hopefully it carries through. We got a lot of practices before we get to Minnesota, which is going to be a very tough ball game. You know, it's like Custer. The only difference in Custer and us is we know what's on the other side of the hill. And so for us going into it, then you have Stephen F. Austin, SMU, and then you have a very tough 4-game swing with going to Lubbock, and then Texas at home, and then going to Manhattan, then going to Ames. So 3 out of your 4, so you play a lot of road games in a row and get ready to go. But that's the Big 12, so we're excited about it, and you've got to embrace it and go forward.
Jenny Carlson with the Oklahoman again. Bob Bowlesby was in here a little bit ago talking about the limiting days of contact for teams to 2, including a game day. What's been your situation in the past? How much hitting have you guys done, and how is that going to affect you?
It's easy for us. We just, on Tuesday, that's the only day we're in full pads besides the game. Everybody always looks surprised at me because we're physical, but Sunday we're in shorts, Tuesday we're in full, Wednesday we're in shells, Thursday we're in shorts. We've been that way since really since we've been at TCU. Our whole thing is about being physical in the spring, being physical in 2-a-days. And then when you get in the season, in this league, you've got to be able to pull up because of the bodies, and you've got to be able to get guys to the end of the season. And so, we've always taken that. I think what you'll find that there's a majority of coaches, there's a false sense of we just try to bang our kids around. But I think all of us, we like keeping our jobs, and we want to keep our kids healthy, and we've all been like that. Fresh shoulders, fresh legs means more physical players, and so once we get to that point, but that's what we've always felt like we needed to do. I've even when you go every other day, we're probably only down even in 2-a-days, where we go maybe 2 days we're in full pads, both practices. That's it. We don't even do it in 2-a-days. So I think it's not so much part of the climate of everything that's going on with it. I just think the body types. I've just felt like the body types are getting so big, so strong, so fast. I think it's just important to make sure that you get all your guys to game day and you keep them healthy. And that's, been our mindset for a long time.
Hey Gary, Ryan Gerbosi of the Dallas Morning News. You had worked with Dick Bumpus for a good percentage of your career. With his retirement, how are things different not having him around, and how much are things going to be different on the field with coaches Cross and Glasgow?
Well, they were all here before. I think it's probably the most experienced staff we've had in a couple years, because obviously Coach Glasgow's been with us a long time. He's been the guy he's been with me longer than what Coach Bumpus. In some situations, obviously losing a guy that's been in the profession as long as Coach Bumpus had, it's really hard to replace that. But Coach Sharp has been in our program for a long time. That'll be our D-line coach, and Coach Cross now being his third year. Just the spring and then fall is there's way different than what it was starting when young coaches in our scheme come in. And then Paul Gonzalez, that is our corner coach, really is a guy that's been behind the scenes, was a graduate assistant. Is probably one of the more articulate guys we've ever had. Done a great job recruiting so far. So I feel really good about where we're at as a staff. Obviously, you have, when you lose a coach, and that's where our seniors are coming back. Our older group is our senior guys up front. You worry about it all, but I thought they did very well in the spring. And I think the farther they get along, fall will even be better because you just have a different guy coaching them.
Gary, this time last year, how much of your offense had y'all installed from the new offense, and then how much more have you added to the playbook?
Well, I don't think, it's I think one of the secrets to that offense is that they try to out-execute you. I think what we've tried to do is just do it better in the spring. Everybody's told me that there's always another level the second year, and so kind of like last year, I'm going to wait and see what the difference is. I think it's, when you've been around other kinds of offenses, you kind of know the progression. This will only be my second year of being the head coach with this offense, so I don't know what the progression is besides playing against it. But everybody that I've talked to has talked about taking another level. One of the things just you now have your older guys can teach your younger guys, where it was kind of a brand new thing in the summertime before, where now you're getting a lot more reps. You're able to run more of your offense in the summer. You're able to do all those things, which we didn't get a chance to do as much a year ago because they didn't know all of it. So, this offense is a little bit even more like our defense. It's all about execution. Look like you're doing a lot of things. You throw in a few bells and whistles, but it's about being better at what they do than what other people are and plugging in good players.
Coach, it's Onmore Richardson from Orange Bloods. How confident do you feel that your team would be in the playoffs without having a conference championship game in the Big 12?
Well, after last year, I don't feel confident about anything. But the key to the whole story is, and I'm going to always be a team player. The bottom line to it, I handle it the way I handle it because that was what was best for college football, best for the Big 12, best for TCU, best for my team, and I knew if I handled it differently that they wouldn't have played like they did in the bowl game. And so for me, I think every year is different. I'm not a big believer that you have to have a conference championship. I thought the whole thing about going to a playoff was that they picked the four best teams. You didn't even have to have a championship game. That's what I was led to believe. In 33 years, I've seen different forms of how we got to a national championship in every shape and manner. So for me, all I can do is control what I can control, and that's to try to put the best TCU team on the field that I can and make sure that they act right on and off the field, and let all those other people decide all the other things they need to. But there was 8 really good football teams last year, I thought, and I think I would have told you before we even went into the season. There's always about every year. There's always about 8. There's very few times that I ever look up and say, well, this team here, when I watch, and I don't get a chance to watch a lot, but I say this team's so much better than everybody else. They're the favorite. I think once you get into one of those tournaments and do all of it, and our key is to control our own destiny, and the best way to do that is to try to win them all, and that's what we're going to try to get done. And then we'll see how everything else falls. But I think you have to. For me, I have to believe and trust in the operation of what goes on. That everybody's going to deal above board. Everybody's going to do the right thing, because that's what we don't do it for the coaches. We do it for the kids. The kids are the ones that are practicing all the way 365 days a year and doing the things they're supposed to do. And that's how we're supposed to find the top 4 teams. Not about money, not about leverage, not about anything else. It's just supposed to be about who are the 4 best teams. And so I've been in this long enough that that I have to believe that the people who are in charge of it, that's what they're going to do. And you know, we've only done it 1 year, and just like coming into this conference, I said you had to wait. You had to do it a couple years till you finally understood the landscape, and then how we had to recruit differently, how did we have to play differently. We changed offenses, and I think we have to also look and wait and see how was last year an anomaly, or because a couple games could have been different. You know, maybe both Baylor and ourselves could have been in the playoffs, and so I can't judge a group yet until I kind of see it go out a couple more years and see how that all extends. So we'll see.